Let's talk about crypto's favorite curse word there is, alt season. Has it started? Will it start soon? Or will it never start this time? Let's take a look. Welcome to the FOMO Factory. My name is Menno. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the bell notification on, and let's get into it. Now, first of all, I must say congratulations for holding through all the nonsense, the FUD, the prices going down, the bad news, the wars, the this, the that, because eventually it did turn out once again that buying the lows was a very good idea. And I know it was scary. But then again, it pays off, right? We mentioned a couple times, like whenever the chart goes down, 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 you don't want to buy every single dip out there necessarily, but when it has that real capitulation event, that's just where you want to buy. Although that's exactly the point where I got most comments that this time it's dead, the Bitcoin dominance will go up forever, altcoins are not coming back, ETH is a piece of trash, etc., etc. Yet in the last couple of months, just a couple months actually, the altcoin market is already up with like 70%, and that's basically just the high cap altcoin market, right? So no new all-time highs yet, right? In my opinion, there is something way more to this. So let's talk about that. Now, I purely want to make this about alt season because we all know Bitcoin 118K, right? Bitcoin is just doing fine and we don't have to worry about Bitcoin. We now can also see that Ethereum is doing absolutely fantastic, broke out of this trend line right here, and not a little bit, right? We want to see a weekly close above it, definitely, and let's be fair, it went above it like that in 1 week. It can go below that again as well in just 1 week, but things are looking quite good. So as long as Ethereum holds above 29.5, then I would say looks pretty good out there, right? I also want to go over a couple indicators that you have never seen before, and these indicators give you some really interesting insights, but let's get back to that in a second. So let's talk about alt season, right? It's what we have all been waiting for. It took a long time, and now people finally start to believe like, hey, altcoins are going up. I guess we should buy altcoins. Okay. Thanks. Let's talk about that. So what is alt season? Alt season is a moment in the crypto cycle where altcoins durably outperform Bitcoin collectively. And with collectively, I don't mean every altcoin, right? Not every altcoin is going to outperform, of course, but also not just 10 out of the, I don't know how much there are, right? That's also not an alt season. Some people say we had an alt season back in November 2024. And I think that this wasn't really an alt season, actually. It definitely gave us a signal like, hey, this is kind of how it's going to look like, right? And it gave us some hope, but wasn't really an alt season. For two reasons. The rally was not nearly big enough and also not long enough, right? If we look back, and let me actually get to the only chart that that really matters for that. If we look back at the two only real alt seasons that we had so far, what the all right, thanks for that, I guess. If we look back at the only two real alt seasons that we had so far, yeah, that's 2017 and 2021, right? And what you see is that in the last year, we had a rally, but we came back down again. You kind of can compare it to this rally in 2020. Yeah, and you could say like, oh, well, this is an alt season, that's an alt season, that's an alt season. It's maybe a little, you know, definition issue, but I don't think it is. When I talk about an alt season, I talk about the real outperformance of altcoins. Right now, the money flow still seems to exist. So Bitcoin absorbed all the money, right? And that gave a narrative again for people to say like, well, it's different because it's only in ETFs and this and that, and altcoins won't go up, right? That's the this time is different narrative, which again, guys, never worked. And so far, it doesn't seem to work as well. So please try to let that go. These are absolutely four very dangerous words. And now it looks like the money is flowing into Ethereum. And after Ethereum, you know, by the original money rotation chart, it should be high caps and then low caps. Right now, to me, it looks like we're now kind of in the Ethereum stage. And you can see that by looking at ETH BTC. And ETH BTC, why does it now go up? Because it just got slapped down really hard in the first place, right? And we can say like, well, here we got that news. What a coincidence, right? I think it's more than just that, actually. Trend lines and all that kind of stuff, that matters for a good reason. But Ethereum, Bitcoin came back down to the major levels where it went down in the last bull market, or before the last bull market as well. Yeah, and it happened to be that right there, it got a pretty decent bounce. It broke all resistance so far, and it's now sitting at the next big point of resistance. And this is kind of a huge one, actually. But yeah, if we break that, then there could be a huge lag. Now, I must say as well that if you zoom in a little bit on it, look, it has been basically straight up since a month, right? Only up. Yeah, it's never up only. At a certain point, we do need to see a good pullback, reset the sentiment, and then go up from there. I think that will be really healthy, actually. So what's going to happen in the short term, I don't know. But if we do see a pullback, then yeah, it should be good eventually, actually. Because a lot of people now, they develop maybe some Altseason PTSD in the last couple 2 weeks, and yeah, at a certain point things will also go down again, right? But now it looks like Ethereum is outperforming Bitcoin on this time frame right here, and it still has a long way to go, in my opinion, before it gets back to levels that you can even consider as diminishing, let alone outperforming. Right, so that's for Ethereum. But then you also want to look like, okay, cool. What about the rest of the altcoin market? Now you can do that by looking, for example, at altcoins on their Ethereum pair. And then you can look at the total 3 ES. Total 3 is everything excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum and excluding stablecoins on its Ethereum pair. And that looks like this. Now, it might kind of, you know, scare you. Like, oh, altcoins on their ETH pair are now going down, so alts are getting wrecked. In reality, alts are not getting wrecked. If you look at the total 3 ES on its own, you can see that this chart is going up, right? So it's not that people take money out of altcoins to put it into ETH. Otherwise, this chart would go down, right? What is happening right now is that the total crypto market is going up. Right? There's more money coming from the outside into crypto. It touched $4 trillion, which is absolutely crazy, actually. But more money is being put into Ethereum. Right? And therefore, you see altcoins on their Ethereum pair now going down. Now, is that a bad thing, though? I don't know. If you overlay the actual altcoin market, right, on the dollar pair, what do you see in the last cycle? Well, at a certain point, alts on their ETH pair really broke down, right? They were going to the top right here, just like we did right now, almost, kind of right here, right? But at a certain point, they were ranging. But when they really broke down, you can see that that was also the moment where the altcoin market on its dollar pair was actually going up. And that's kind of what we are seeing right now as well. The altcoin market on its dollar pair just goes up right now. But what you'll also notice is that once that happened, once Ethereum had a lot of liquidity being put in, right? Where ETH just did fantastic, you can see that altcoins started to outperform Ethereum again, right? And what happened in the meantime with the altcoin market, they were already up nicely, but when that rotation happened, that's where altcoins actually made a new all-time high. And where they just went into a straight alt season, basically. Right? And I think we are kind of now at this step right here, where the altcoin market is already going up because the rotation from BTC happened into ETH and certain high cap alts already, right? And that there's just a lot of liquidity right now. There's 120K price for BTC. So yeah, it doesn't take much to pump ETH and alts like that, right? And at a certain point, when alts have bled enough against Ethereum, then alts go up against Ethereum again, right? But then they take the liquidity out of a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10K Ethereum, right? And that makes alts go up even harder on the dollar pair. That's kind of repeating exactly right now again as well. But the pure definition again is where altcoins outperform Bitcoin. Yeah, that did not happen yet. Again, if you look at this chart, it had a bounce right here, right? A very strong bounce actually, but I cannot call this an outperformance. Actually, it is a short-term outperformance. That's definitely true. But if you zoom out, then you can say like, wow, yeah, great. We have seen this a couple times before, right? What is pretty interesting though is this. It stood out to me and it feels like worth mentioning. Look closely at this chart right here when we had the last two alt seasons. What happened? Alts got wrecked against Bitcoin, went into a bear market, went into an accumulation area, swept that low in the accumulation area right here, and it went down, was like hovering, went below it, touched this trend line, went into Altseason, right? What do you see right here in the last cycle? Alt BTC in a bear market, right? Ranging, accumulation, sweep these lows again to this trend line, Altseason. What we're seeing right now is Alt BTC bear market, ranging, swept the lows, touched the trend line, and it happened that from that point we have one of the stronger bounces we have seen this market so far. Could be a signal that history is somewhat of repeating. Now, what I feel is something to consider, at least, right, is there are still a lot of people that say like, yeah, no, altcoins on the Bitcoin pair, they will go lower. And there, of course, there is a chance that they do. But do realize that there's also a chance that they don't, right? And are you willing to miss out on this pretty rare altcoin outperformance moment, which we call alt season, just because you feel like you should time a bottom that may or may not come? That's, in my opinion, a little dangerous to try. What you'll notice as well is that both previous cycles, both alt seasons, when we got to this low of this trend line, when we bounced, it never came back, right? It never had a retest, right? It was green, 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 up like crazy. Altseason just started here, right? It could be that we do the same, right? If we do the same, then you get no second chance. It doesn't mean that prices will be higher tomorrow than today. This is a monthly chart, but overall, it does mean that if we repeat that, then next month, you wished that you bought this month. Or in 2 months, you wish that you bought next month, right? Like, that's how it played out so far. There's a possibility that that happens. Now, this looks like somewhat of the range. And the alt season in 2017 went completely crazy, right? And went way above this. But even if we don't do that and get a very mild alt season and we go to the top of this range right here, it means that altcoins on average, the high cap altcoins on average, have around 160% to pump against Bitcoin. That's kind of crazy because one, I'm talking again about high caps, not about low caps. Two, 160% is a 2.6x. Three, what was number three? Oh yeah, against Bitcoin, right? It's not that like, hey, if Bitcoin goes down, yeah, that's too bad. But Bitcoin can also go up, right? What if Bitcoin goes up to 250K, right? Yeah, there's a possibility. Matter of fact, that's the Bitcoin balance price actually, or the terminal. I think the balance, no, terminal, one of the two, at least. It's interesting, look it up. That's exactly where Bitcoin always goes in every bull market, no exception, before it goes into a bear market. And the current balance, or terminal price, I think balance, is sitting at 260K. So it could be that Bitcoin does a 2x, right? Altcoins do a 2.5x against Bitcoin. And then there are also the low caps that may outperform that. So you know, it's something to consider. I'm not saying that it will go all the way up here, but yeah, again, if you want to base it off of chart seasonality and all that kind of stuff, then it's something you might want to consider, right? When you look at the Bitcoin dominance, also decent indicator for Altseason, right? And I say decent, I don't think it's the best indicator because yeah, measures Bitcoin against the rest of the market, but the rest of the market is also stables. So if Bitcoin goes up and stables don't, then the Bitcoin dominance if Bitcoin goes down and stables don't, then the Bitcoin dominance automatically also goes down, right? So I wonder how accurate this is actually. But yeah, therefore you have the Bitcoin dominance excluding some certain stable coins. And you can see that it got rejected off of a range low. And this has less history, definitely. But it is an interesting chart to look at. Now, there's an indicator that I created. And once you are in the Alpha Factory, you can get early access to these indicators actually in a very interesting way. But if you look at the, let me see where it is, the altcoin risk based on the Bitcoin dominance, you can see that the risk is now sitting, you know, pretty low right now. And green is just really where you want to get into alts, right? Also, there's the oscillator risk score. And the oscillator risk score is an indicator that I figured like, hey, let's not just look at how high it is sitting, but let's also look at the current level and let's look back in history to see how much percent of the time were we sitting higher than the current level. Because if that's not a lot, for an oscillator, it says that that's a pretty good time to be bearish on that chart. Right? For Bitcoin, it doesn't work because that always make new all-time highs, basically. But for oscillators, it is kind of perfect. And here it gave us that red signal. It started in March, give or take, until now, saying like, hey, historically speaking, we don't spend a lot of time at these high levels. So be careful at these high levels, right? For the Bitcoin dominance, you have a little more history even, right? It's also flashing right now. You can put this on most oscillators, actually, on all of the oscillators, even on the Cardano dominance, if you want to look how that's looking, right? Cardano dominance also saying like, hey, green, we don't spend a lot of time below this. So, you know, it should be actually a little higher than where it is right now. Telling you, be bullish on Cardano compared to the rest of the market, for example. Well, really helpful stuff, actually. So, when you think about how altcoins are now moving against the rest of the market, yeah, there are many indicators that we can take a look at. For example, there's the one that Benjamin Cowan likes to take a look at, right? The total tree minus USDT divided by Bitcoin. Yeah, I said before, like, I don't know how accurate this is because it also measures USDT or USDC and all these other stable coins. And yeah, if you want to look how altcoins look against Bitcoin, then you should not include stable coins in that same chart, right? That doesn't really make sense to me, actually. So therefore, the total tree ES BTC that we just looked at. Nevertheless, if you do want to look at this chart, yeah, look, there are, of course, people waiting for this level to hit, right? And the only thing that I could say, like, are you sure that it is going to hit, right? And I think the answer is that nobody is sure. Does it really matter, right? If you look at a chart like this, does it really matter if you got in here or anywhere here, right? If you look back at last cycle, were you really making a bad trade if you bought alts here, right? Eventually they got up. Like, yeah, of course you make more if you get it here, but then if you miss out, you make nothing, right? You FOMO back in and you even lose money. So I just don't think it's the wisest thing to try to time that bottom, actually. Now, also, the RSI is a very good momentum indicator that you can definitely use on altcoins against Bitcoin, right? So you measure how the momentum actually is for altcoins. So I also created this one, and I'm spoilering a little bit, But it's because I really think that in this bull market, you don't want to surround yourself with nobody or new people. You want to surround yourself in a community that has some experience and et cetera, et cetera. So join that Elf Factory, right? And then you also can get this early access. So yeah, but if you look at this, then you can see that we got that signal. The RSI crossed on the monthly, meaning the RSI on the monthly, big time frame, big moves, right? Crossed its moving average, saying basically that the momentum is better than average, and a better momentum than average is mostly leading to price appreciation, right? Now, you can see the last time this happened was November. Yeah, we know November, right? We got that big November run. A lot of money was actually made. We also had it happen right here in March 2024, right? And in March 2024, if we go to the others chart, for example, which is sitting here, right? There was a candle of 33% in a month, actually. It's pretty good, right? Even though Bitcoin still went up, alts also outperformed a little bit in that month. Going back to that chart, and the time it signaled before that was here. There it signaled Altseason, right? If you even waited for that signal to be fully confirmed and you stepped in like even 1 month later, then you would have wrote like the biggest part of that. So that's something to consider as well. Like, okay, you know, I don't know how smart it is now to be very bearish on this. Also because it just doesn't really make sense right now with the adoption that ETH currently has, right? Also the others dominance as well, by the way. It bounced so far off a pretty interesting level. And if we do look at the RSI right there, that, like I said in one of the latest videos, has some work to do. But, you know, the cross, it is pointing into the right direction, right? It's pointing into the right direction. It could throw a curveball, definitely. But yeah, I mean, the last time it threw a curveball, that was also the November run. So even with a curveball, we can make gains, right? But it's not really confirmed yet. Now, when it comes to narrative, this is my opinion. Let me know what's yours. But I do feel like, man, we were all waiting for rate cuts and the end of QT and Powell getting fired, working at the McDonald's, being doing something else now, whatever. However, we haven't seen that. None of that, right? There's no good news when it comes to that. There's good news for Bitcoin adoption and ETH adoption at most, but not really a risk-on environment. Yet we now already start to see this rotation. So can you imagine what happens when also that kicks in? And I feel like that can only get better. Like, it's not priced in that Powell is going to be fired in 7 months from now. Like, that's not how, I think that's a little far-fetched, actually. So also on top of that, I feel like, man, there is quite some good news potentially coming, and also good news that you cannot price in yet. You cannot, you know, partly maybe, but you cannot price in the rate cuts themselves, right? That money is not there yet. So people cannot invest that money yet. And I feel like then when we get that, that might actually be a pretty good catalyst for the coming run. So yeah, when it comes, like, if we do mention Altseason, like, hey, again, what is Altseason? Altcoins really durably outperform Bitcoin. So far, it's nothing more than just a dead cat bounce, to call it like that, right? But altcoins on the dollar pair are already going up pretty hard, just because Bitcoin has a price of 120K, right? Let alone if we now see the real reversal. So how long do I think this is all going to last? You know, I honestly have no idea. If you would ask me about the full cycle, right, when could that end? I think we have a long way to go. I think that the people that were here a cycle before too, maybe they remember like, wow, In January, you think like, well, we'll be over by now, right? So much money that there has been made already. In February, it's like, what the hell's still going on? And in March, and you know, and it goes on and on and on, and it's getting like chaotic, unrealistic, and like really the sentiment is getting stupid, right? We now have some kind of a positive sentiment. It's hopeful, but it's for sure not euphoric by any means yet. And I think that, you know, it does not make much sense, in my opinion, to think that Bitcoin is going to top out anywhere sooner than November this year. Because one, that's a seasonality that never happens. So why would it right now? Two, I don't really believe in narratives, but yeah, if you have to look at it like, hey, these ETFs are fully buying right now. The adoption is really here. Like, it kind of seemed like that just started. Three, the whole business cycle has been moved a little bit to the right, actually. And so I feel like, man, if this is going to be different when it comes to the length, there's a good chance that this will go on in Q1 or Q2 of next year, actually. Right? And that will give alts plenty of time to outperform. And therefore, I would highly recommend look at your personal goal. Like, what's your goal, right? And base your portfolio on that. Right? I have a goal of a 3x, give or take. So I'm not going to buy all rank 1,000 kind of shitcoins. Why? Like, if I can get that 3x without the chance of losing it, or at least a lower chance, then I'll go for that, right? And maybe keep 10-20% of your portfolio that you can gamble a little bit more with. But, you know, crypto is gambling on its own enough already, right? Again, also the chart, we've been mentioning this for a long time. This is the Bitcoin ETH stablecoin dominance together. So this is basically the dominance for the whole crypto market, excluding altcoins. And if you look at that, then it's very clear to me, actually. This is the range high, right? This is the range low. Right? We wicked above it a little bit, and we wicked below it a little bit. But overall, the range is pretty clear, in my opinion. Right? And we just came off of the range high. It went from 82% to now 79%. And that already made this whole move happen. Right? Now, if we want to go to the range low, that's around 65%. So we haven't seen much yet. And again, the only alt season that we can track on this chart, we had to go above this right here. So it should go above it right now as well. No. It's a dangerous thought. Like, if you want to look at simple range highs and range lows and not include wicks, because wicks are wicks, right? Then that's not something you want to bet on. But yeah, even if, then we should be extra happy. Right, because then it means we should also go all the way down here, which is a 22% move down so far. And so far, we have seen a 4% move down, right? So that kind of means that from this point, it will all get 5 times bigger from this point, right? Imagine if Bitcoin also goes up more, then it's going to be completely crazy, actually. So I think that will be pretty interesting, actually. Now, the last alt season, you know, according to this chart, lasted for 20 weeks, right? And in total, it was more, way more, right? But the big explosive move lasted for 20 weeks, right? If we look at the actual alt season chart, and I'm saying the actual alt season, but yeah, because just it is, actually. It probably says the same. Yeah, 20 weeks. Right? 2017, yeah, the structure was just a little different, actually. Right? Because that alt season was kind of divided in 2 parts. You had part 1, where it lasted for 10 weeks. Right? And then we had a pause for, the biggest part of the year. And then we had another run for 4 weeks. Right? Or even for way longer if you include this. But the total adds up to about 14 weeks, right? If you take it very narrow, at least. So, hey, let's say also around 20 weeks. So it's, you know, like, we don't need a lot of time. Let's say it started right now, right? Like it started here and like it started here. And this was the starting point. 20 weeks from now will put us in the beginning of November. Right? It's not a prediction. But based on how it moved so far, before it could be that now you are broke and in November you are very rich. It could be unrealized, right? Like you have to take profits. We're going to talk about that in different videos actually. But there is a possibility, right? That by the beginning of November, we are sitting at the top of Altseason. It is definitely possible, right? However, you want to keep in mind though, that if you overlay Bitcoin, Bitcoin topped out before Altseason topped out. Here, Bitcoin topped out. Yeah, this is a little harder to say actually, because it had somewhat of a double top actually, right? Therefore, maybe Altseason was less blow off toppy as well. But if you want to take it with the first top, right, the technical top, Bitcoin topped out before Altseason topped out. So if we go with that 20 weeks again, then that should maybe also mean that Bitcoin is going to top out more to the left. And like I just mentioned, I don't see how that makes sense. So if Bitcoin is going to top out maybe more to the right, it could be that this Altseason right now is either going to be more tempered, right? Like that it's going to be less vertical, same gains, but over a longer time frame. Right? And that's not weird, as we have seen this whole Altseason cycle kind of chart, right? Like that played out a little longer than this one right here, and this one played out a little longer than this one right here. Or we haven't started yet, right? And that we maybe hover a little bit, maybe go a little up, a little down, maybe sideways, maybe I don't know what the hell, and then maybe started later. That's also a possibility. There's so much to speculate on. You have to ask yourself, does it matter? And if it matters, then how could I make it not matter, right? Because, of course, what we want and what we actually need could be two different things. Of course, I want an Altseason today, cash out tomorrow, be rich. But I'm also looking at this and be like, I am not in a rush, actually. I'm fine, right? If this all plays out, I'm fine. It doesn't matter for me. I'm not going to be too picky. Like, hey, let it play out in 20 weeks or in 50 weeks. I'm okay, right? Yeah, if it does matter to you, you should ask yourself, am I maybe in with a little bit too much money? But I do think that eventually, again, we are going to get it. And it's funny, right? Like when we are now here, this little uptick, there are a lot more people believing that it will happen. But when we were here, nobody believed it. Well, if you look, it's barely a difference, right? That's how big a real Altseason can get. If this little uptick could already flip the sentiment completely, yeah, man, crazy. Then you'll know how euphoric a real Altseason could actually be. So I'm pretty excited for what's potentially about to come. I would, again, look at the goals that you have and adjust your portfolio based on that. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about this that I might be able to answer or not. But don't come ask like, what should I buy? Should I buy this right now? I don't know. I don't know your goals. I don't know the risk you are willing to take. I don't know your, I don't know anything. Right? I don't know nothing about you. So that's a little, there are no straight answers to that, right? I can only say, for me, it is nice if I make around a 3x. And if I miss out on another 4x after that, you can laugh at me. I don't care. I reach my goal, and that's the goal, right? So for me, I'm fine holding a render. Right? I am not expecting that render will do a 20x from this point. But I'm also not expecting that render will completely wreck me like the average coin that can make a 20x. And therefore, I like this coin. Does not mean that if I mention this coin, that this is better than anything else. But based on my goals, I think I can buy stuff like AVEX, like Arrow, like Render, like Cardano, like Ethereum, Super, and I will reach it, right? And there's not a lot of risk in there. Yeah, I also have a little part in my portfolio that likes a little bit more risk, right? So I'm also exposed to a wild. And that's what you see right here. Wild this month is up 110%. Yeah, that's nice. But the counterpoint is also that if we are not in a good environment, you see that the same token goes down 91%. And I don't want that to happen with my whole portfolio, because then you're going to need a lot of 110% to go up, right? To compensate for that. So, right, risk-reward ratio, really important. I would say go for that. And later, when it's, you know, turnaround season where the low caps really start to outperform, then you can always choose to take a little bit off of a render and put it into a lower cap coin, right? But for now, I would say, to wrap it up, is this the start? Let me put it like this. Is alt season not gonna happen? I've been saying all the time that it probably will. And the charts, the sentiment, everything, everybody, it's now really getting confirmative, actually. So yeah, more reasons to believe that it will. Also because, again, a lot happened and there was no good news at all for risk on assets, right? And eventually we will get that news. So that's pretty much a guarantee for me already, right? So will it happen? Yeah. Has it already happened or not? That's the question. This chart, for example, again says yes, but you know, you should not rely on just one little thing. And I think the message is, it should not matter if it happened already or not. It should be telling you like, hey, it's time to be in alts, right? And whether it plays out tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, we'll see, right? So yeah, that's it for today, guys. Like the video if you like the video. Again, join the Alpha Factory. There's a link down below to the Discord where you can see these indicators. Get on a call with me, follow my portfolio, talk to the community over there. They're very experienced. Get on group calls right there. There's a lot of charts that we share, giveaways that we do. So like, that's what you want to surround yourself with. I put a lot of sweat and tears, especially a lot of tears in it, actually. So do check it out. And let me know, what do you think? Is it gonna happen? Is it finally time, right? And if not, if yes, why? Let me know. I want to learn from you as well. For now, thanks for watching. Take care.